listening to know a little bit about Mr. Jones in terms of his leadership with Columbia Savings and Loan and some of his background, his education, and his experience that led him to be in the position that he's currently in. So we just mentioned Ernie, as he allows me to call him, is the president of the bank. He is also an entrepreneur. He is a seasoned veteran attorney of over 20 years. His background includes having been corporate counsel in the private sector. Also, he was chief legal counsel for the Department of Workforce Development. He's a former hearing examiner for the Department of Financial Institutions. And for those out there that don't really know what a hearing examiner is, it's like a judge. Okay, so this is someone who has a lot of knowledge, has a lot of authority to make decisions to resolve disputes. And he's also a former banking attorney for the state of Wisconsin. I wanted to make a point of putting Ernie's background out there a little bit. I know that he likes to fly below the radar. I've had several representatives from the bank on the show multiple times since we started back in February, but I've never had the president on the bank on the show. And when I would go through my list of acknowledgments of people that are either working on the board or working at the bank, I'd always acknowledge Mr. Jones, but this is the first time we've had a chance to have him here in person. He is the type of leader that works behind the scenes. He keeps his head down, handling complex issues and navigating things that have allowed this bank to sustain. And we're going to talk more about that in today's show. I called him before on here the reluctant leader, but I implored him to come today, and he did agree to come and talk a little bit about the bank. But before we do, Ernie, I would like to talk a little bit more about you. So I talked about some of your educational background here and that you're the president of Columbia Savings. But you are another example of what I like to call homegrown talent.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up in the Milwaukee area, the suburbs of Milwaukee.
Yeah, Brown Deer.
Yep. And you happen to come from a media family. So let's get that out of the way.
Yes, I do. And just like the bank is coming into its 100th year, third generation entrepreneur, and my grandmother, who's a pioneer in the Black community, my father, and now my younger sister. So media's been in the blood. I mean, as you stated, and thank you for, I don't know if I have anything else left to say after the introduction.
Oh, no,
But it comes from a media family,
Yeah, so Ernie is humble. So let me go ahead and say, so the WNOV station is owned by Ernie's family, his father, Gerald Jones. He mentioned his grandmother, who was also named Mary Ellen Jones, and that's where your sister, Mary Ellen, derives her name. So she's feisty, just like your grandmother, and very able and capable, and currently running the station. So I would like to just acknowledge, you're the second youngest of 5 children, right? And I want to congratulate Mr. Gerald Jones and Mrs. Ernestine Jones for raising 5 wonderful children who are now all adults. The oldest of which, unfortunately, has passed on about 10 years now. But there is Stacy, and say Stacy's last name for me.
Or married name?
Yes, because
Salakian.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's Stacy, and then there's Gerald Jones Jr., and then now you, Ernest Jones, and the youngest, Mary Ellen Jones, again, who's running the station that we're fortunate to be on today. So that doesn't happen every day, okay? That doesn't happen by accident. Somebody poured excellence into you. I don't want to say the children, but you know what I mean, the children of your parents. And I really... Your dad is the businessman, and he was doing his thing, but I want to give special recognition for your mom this morning, because she must have done a whole lot of things right to raise the type of kids that she has. So I want to acknowledge her on the air and say thank you so much. Mrs. Jones, for always listening and always giving us feedback with respect to the station. So now I'm giving you some feedback, and I'm saying that you did a great job with your kids and your son that I have the pleasure of working with every day. I cannot speak highly enough of. So I'm doing all the talking, even
No, it's
though
okay.
I brought you to the show. I just want to talk a little bit more about your education, and then
Oh,
I really am
please.
gonna
Oh
get
no, you
you
take your time. I just
really gonna give you a chance to speak. So Ernie has a bachelor's degree in philosophy, which I don't know if I've met too many people that have that. I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy.
Mm,
So when we stumbled on that similarity, I thought, we are kind of like-minded people
mhm.
to even have earned that credential. Most people don't do that, but Ernie does have a bachelor's in philosophy from the University of Chicago, a master's degree in Latin American Studies, and a Juris Doctorate or law degree from the University of Madison. So top tier education for a top tier individual.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. So really, again, Ernie, I appreciate you coming. And I wanted to give the audience a little bit of background in terms of who you are before we start talking about Columbia Savings and Loan.
Sure.
Okay.
You saved me the trouble, so.
Well,
I
yeah,
appreciate
yep. So that's kind of what I did. Was there anything you wanted to add?
that. Oh no, only the fact that when you're speaking about my mother, that's where I get my name too.
Okay, yeah. All right, that makes sense. That makes great sense. So yeah, so I know she's listening. I don't even have to hope for it. I'm counting on it. I'm certain of it. So okay, so yeah, she must be so proud, and has every right to be so. So I do want to just say that here today. So Ernie, with all of your background, you speak multiple languages. You're a lawyer. You've got all these things. How in the world did you come to be involved with Columbia Savings and Loan, let alone eventually become the president?
Sure. Let's see if I can remember.
If not, I know.
I can.
So
Yeah. So I mean, you ran through the resume. After law school, I spent time. Well, I was my father's lawyer for a little bit. Then I spent time working for firms in Chicago and New York before returning to Wisconsin, working for the state back in 2007 for the Department of Administration, state of Wisconsin, for 7 years. And while there, I happened to become colleagues with former DFI Secretary and DWD Secretary Ray Allen, who brought me over to the Department of Financial Institutions. My first role there was mortgage banking supervisor. So I was head of mortgage banking for the state. And then after about a year, moved into the banking attorney role. So as far as getting there, I didn't have any background in banking at the time, but being there for, I think, 5 years, you get to know quite a bit about the process and from the regulatory side and what banks can and can't do. Now I work closely with the secretary, governor's office, the industry, the FDIC, Wisconsin DFI, Department of Financial Institutions. So, yeah, and while I was there, part of the process in regulating banks is to make sure that they're solvent and that they can keep the doors open, make sure that people's money's protected. I had the misfortune of being a part of the closure of North Milwaukee State Bank.
When was that? I think that was 2016.
I think so. So I think when I started with DFI, we had 3 banks. We had Legacy, North Milwaukee, and Columbia. And by the time I left DFI, we were just left with Columbia. And the closure it was the first time I had to go with the FDIC and DFI to close a bank, and let alone a black bank. It was awful.
It had to be. And North Milwaukee had been in the community, approximately 50 years or so.
Yeah.
Am I right about that? I believe so.
Yep. And my father told me recently, within the last year, that my grandmother was one of the founders of North Milwaukee. So I said to myself, well, I can help it. This will never happen again.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more, to the extent you're comfortable, in terms of what that was like, because you were with the federal regulators, or was it was you? Yep. It was regulators. Yep. There was law enforcement involved, right? Like, so like FBI.
I can't remember if FBI was there, but there were about at least 24 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of which law enforcement. Weapons drawn.
I mean, carrying, but
Carrying.
yeah.
Okay.
But they do that for safety because it's well for I guess for their own safety because and it's with every bank they don't know what they're walking into. I mean these are people's lives
Right.
and it's not expected normally by staff.
Right.
Yeah.
And you certainly got the sense with that situation that the staff that you saw there were surprised. They
Oh,
were not expecting
oh,
this
not at
to
all.
happen.
No, no, not at all.
So it just you guys came, I think it was maybe a Friday afternoon.
Yep, yep. And it was all black staff at a
Right.
black bank.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that wasn't cool. But
Yeah, no,
yeah,
that had to be hard. And I'm
that was.
sure it was mostly women that were
Yep,
there working.
all women.
And so they were frightened, I would
Hmm.
imagine,
Yep.
just very nervous about
Oh
what
sure.
was going
Oh
on.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that was it. And that's how they found out. Oh, that's it. The bank is closed. You no longer have a job.
That's right. Yep.
And everybody out.
Well, they normally on an acquisition or when another bank comes in to take over, they let people know they try to keep staff as long as they can.
Okay.
But obviously they bring their own people in because there's a lot of things that have to be cleaned up, and there's a whole lot of mechanics as far as acquisition and making sure that people's money that's in the bank is safe.
Right.
Because the FDIC insures depositors up to $250,000.
Right.
But normally on an acquisition, the assets are protected as far as money's in the bank. Normally,
Okay.
that's not across the board though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one experience that you had
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't a pleasant one, but
Mhm.
you had a job to do that day and so the duties were performed.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it then that you came to be involved with Columbia?
Sure. So I met George Gary, the former president, while I was still at DFI, and we met, and he asked me to come on the board, but since I was a regulator, I couldn't at the time do it. And he told me that anytime if you decide to leave, let me know. So that was 2016, 2017, about 2016. So anyway, after I left government, after I was chief counsel at Workforce, and went to the utility, I just gave him a call to see how things were, and he asked if I still wanted to be on the board, and I said, yeah.
Okay. So
Well, yeah. Well, I knew the position of the bank, being a former regulator, and that it had its struggles for quite a while.
right.
So, if there was, and there was for myself, there was a pretty big reputational risk because once you go into a bank that has troubles like this, if they end up closing, then being on the board, people are looking at the board.
Right, right. Never mind the fact that some of the troubles that were there were items that had been lingering
Oh,
for
yeah.
years under the prior board.
Yep.
But people will look at whoever, it's like musical chairs,
Yep,
right? When the
yep.
music stops, that's who they're going to look at.
You break it, you buy it, kind of thing.
Right, right, right. So even understanding that, you made the decision consciously then
Mhm.
because you had inside knowledge.
Mhm.
I don't mean that in a facetious way. I just mean that you were knowledgeable about how to retrieve information that's already in the public.
Oh, sure.
So you knew the state of the bank,
No, right.
and yet you still decided to come on board with the board
Oh, yeah.
and see what you can do to add your expertise to the pot to
Right.
try to help save things.
Sure. And I was, former colleagues and even people within the industry that I've known over the years, they warned me against it. I mean, it was something where they're like, Ernie, I don't think you should do this because your reputation's pretty good right now. But if, well, the general, I guess, consensus from people in the industry was that, this bank might not make it. So I said, well, I'm going to just have to put my reputation on the line and make sure that it makes it.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Which is so I joined the board back in 2019. So I've been on the board for almost 5 years. And I'm trying to remember dates. So I've been in this president, CEO, board chair role since October of 2022.
Right, right.
And it's been a lot of work, a lot of transition, a lot of making sure we follow regulatory requirements. And there was a lot to do,
Right.
especially Well, we can get
Yeah, I was going to
quickly
say
want to get to it.
before, and I do want to talk more about all of that, but
Mhm.
before we get to that, okay, so it's 2019
Mhm.
and you have come to join the board.
Mhm.
How do you go from being a board member to ultimately becoming the president of the board? I know you had mentioned Mr. Ray Allen
Mhm.
before that had brought you in, and you were doing mortgage banking, you were a banking attorney
Mhm.
and so forth, working with him.
Mhm.
But how did it come about that you eventually became the leader of the bank?
Sure. So when I came on the board, I was still at the utility company as corporate counsel, as well as being on the board for the bank. So, during board meetings, you pick up as much as you can, not having a private banking background. And Ray, I'm trying to remember, Secretary Allen retired. I convinced him to come on the board just because he was former secretary. I was his lawyer, and we had, always had a good working relationship, and he was willing to do that. And George Gary, he was, kind of going towards retirement, and Ray was the board chair. So when Mr. Gary retired, Ray assumed the presidency, president CEO, all the titles that I have right now.
Right.
And so we worked together for a while, but he had to retire early because there was family stuff.
Okay.
So I was board chair, and normally when you don't have a replacement for the president CEO, then the board chair, like I always tell you, I didn't choose it chose me.
Yeah, and as I have referred to you as the reluctant leader, but you know what? Because I study leadership, we talk about this, you and I often, and one of the concepts that's out there in terms of leadership is you want the person that is not vying for the role. Sometimes that's the best person for the job,
I guess.
Yeah, well, you're one that came in and as you put it, to some reputational risk, getting involved, pushed your sleeves up, brought Mr. Allen in, and were striving to move forward with things. But then unfortunately, he transitioned out, as I understand.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
and in pretty short order, right? It was
yeah.
just a number of months, maybe 4 months.
About 4 months, and it was about 4 months.
Right.
So and just getting the handle on everything, the systems. It's one of the challenges has been the technology and modernization. The bank did not keep up with the times.
Right.
Even with systems, computers.
Right.
Yeah. So there was a lot of moving parts.
Right.
Transition to.
And I want to talk about that a little bit more in the next segment. But it looks like we are due for a break right now.
Okay.
So we will, I'll invite the audience too to call in if there's any questions, any comments, or anything that you'd like to add to the discussion. Anybody that knows about Columbia Savings and Loan, this is our 100th year in operations. And so there may be some stories that you'd like to tell or just an experience you may have had. The number here is 414-444-5250. That's 414-444-5250. I have Mr. Ernest Jones in the studio, the president of Columbia Savings and Loan.
Last year's RV trip, we met a couple with the same bumper sticker. What are the odds?
Your cousin isn't a good storyteller.
He was a podiatrist, or was it a pharmacist?
You don't say.
Oh, I can't remember.
But she owns an RV protected by Progressive, and you don't. So until you get your own RV, her stories are the most interesting stories you've ever heard.
Wow, interesting.
And when you do get your own RV, save money by bundling it with your home, auto, or other vehicles with Progressive.
Oh, anesthesiologist. He was an anesthesiologist.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states.
We're going abroad for the first time in years, to Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
Raising glasses and hopes. Wine, Women, and Wings Red Carpet Affair celebrates Milwaukee's change makers. Come and be a part of our annual Wine, Women, and Wings Red Carpet Affair, Saturday, July 27th at St. Francis Parish. Embrace a delightful afternoon while supporting our organization and celebrating 9 extraordinary women who have significantly impacted the lives of Milwaukee citizens. Together, let's strive to raise $30,000 for essential programs and services. Enjoy the soothing melodies of jazz music, savory, delectable cuisine, and witness the inspiring unity of exceptional women and men dedicated to a noble cause. Wine, Women, and Wings Red Carpet Affair promises to be an opportunity to meet new friends and reunite with old ones. An unforgettable gathering for a great purpose. For tickets or more information, please call 414-798-0918 or visit claww.org/events.
The Hustle and Grow Show, powered by the Center for Teaching Entrepreneurship, will be Saturday, July 27th at 8 a.m. Please join us as we reunite with previous members of the show for our 7-year anniversary of the Hustle and Grow Show. We will be interviewing them about college, life, and adulthood. So please join us for the Hustle and Grow Show, powered by the Center for Teaching Entrepreneurship, on July 27th at 8 a.m. And don't forget to check out our website at www.ctemke.org.
The Wisconsin State Fair is almost here. Are you ready for it? Snag your discounted admission tickets and more by July 26th. Don't forget your fair favorites like bargain books, cream puffs, Spin City Ride and game tickets, and the Wonder Fair wheel. Time's running out faster than a racing pig, so start planning your day. Feel good at the Wisconsin State Fair, presented by U.S. Cellular, August 1st through 11th.
Hello, WNOV family. This is the Business Pastor, Dr. Robert Piles of Abundant Faith Church of Integrity. Join me every Sunday from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. on WNOV, 860 a.m. and 106.5 FM. Join me for a spirit-filled time every Sunday at 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. here on WNOV, 860 a.m., 106.5 FM.
WNOV 860 and W293CX 106.5 Milwaukee.
Welcome back to Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I have Mr. Ernest Jones in the studio with me this morning. He is the president of Columbia Savings and Loan Association. And again, thank you for being here today. Yeah, Columbia sponsors this show for me every week. And so I can't speak highly enough of Mr. Jones. So we were talking a little bit before the break about how you came to be involved with Columbia Savings and Loan. We talked about how you came on the board, and then there were a couple of transitions out, the retirement of Mr. Gary, who had been the president of the bank for, from what I understand, about 40 years.
Yeah, that's what I believe, 40 years.
Right.
Yep.
And then Mr. Allen, who assumed the presidency, but it was more of a temporary transition, about 4 months or so. And then after he transitioned out, that left you.
Yep.
And so kudos to you for stepping up and taking this on.
Oh,
you could have walked away.
Yeah. And going back to what we spoke about regarding North Milwaukee and the closure, the main reason I stayed on was to make sure that, one, the bank didn't close, and two, was to save the jobs that were there. And I didn't want to have another situation like North Milwaukee where we have sisters losing jobs,
right?
Because without knowing, or without notice.
Right. Exactly.
So that's the reason. That is the primary reason why I stayed on.
Yeah. So when you became in charge of the bank, it sounds like then there were some matters that needed to be addressed in terms of the success of the business, because the bank is a business,
right.
And it had been around a long time.
Yep.
But it sounds like there were some struggles and some troubles, and that this bank might not have been solvent or able to make it at that point.
Sure. And a lot of it had to do with this deals with the modernization. The bank didn't keep up with the times, and as over time with new regulations, they just weren't being followed. So there was a lot of cleaning up to do and making sure that our systems match what the regulators, FDIC and DFI, what they require.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to that point, is there any significance to the fact that this bank is a savings and loan
Oh,
rather
yeah.
than a stock bank?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you explain that to the audience a little bit?
Sure.
And-
Sure. So with banks, so there are only two savings and loans left in the state right now. Columbia, and there's another bank up north, and it's a mutual. Now with a mutual bank, the members, it operates similar to a credit union, where no one in stock banks, people can buy shares. You have investors. So if you need to raise money, you go out and get investors. We can't do that with a mutual. Mutual, all the money that's made, especially with a savings and loan, is by giving out loans. So every time we're in the news about checks from the county or, other partner banks, that's not money that they're giving to the bank. Those are deposits. So they're not giving us $250,000 to say, okay, go spend it how you want to.
Right. In fact, when they make those deposits, the bank pays interest on that.
Exactly. Right.
So that money, if it just sits there, costs you money.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Right.
So yeah. So and that's the struggle as far as being a mutual, is the fact that we can't raise money like any other bank would, or
Right.
a stock bank.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned some of the challenges. I think you mentioned the technology is one in particular.
Mhm.
It's important. The technology happens so quickly now.
Mhm.
The past 20 years has been lightning speed.
Mhm.
Even before then, technology was advancing,
Mhm.
but the bank kind of got stuck in the vortex from
Right.
years ago,
Right.
decades ago,
That's
probably
that's
even.
that's correct. That's true.
There was a
Yeah.
lot that done by paper and
Mhm.
not having online access. So
Right.
those sorts of things were challenges, and to some extent still are, because those aren't things that you work through overnight.
Right. Right. I'm so glad you brought that up, Coral, because in addition to that, it's the services we provide now. CDs, savings, and obviously financing when it comes to people buying homes and mortgages. So the products, part of the transition and ultimate goal is, one, to improve the technology, but two, also to offer more products. A savings and loan will never, it's not going to be a full functioning bank like a larger bank like a U.S. bank or even some of the larger community banks. But at the same time, we provide access to credit for low to moderate income customers, primarily for mortgages. That was the reason the bank was created 100 years ago by the Halyards, and that's still the mission today.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's a mission bank,
Absolutely.
basically.
Yeah.
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 So by that token, Columbia, with 100 years of service, has an initiative to have 100 people become homeowners
Mhm.
for the 100th year.
Mhm.
But at the same time, as you just mentioned, Columbia will consider those that maybe don't have the most pristine credit score, and just kind of look at it on an individual basis in terms of the underwriting.
That's right.
To try to be a greater support to the community.
Yep.
So that's the mission.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
And yeah, you're the man behind the mission. So so this is good. This is all very
Well,
good.
I got a good board now too.
Well, I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
what are some of the steps that you had to take in order to turn things around? Because sounds like we're telling the story here of what's kind of transpired, and things were looking kind of dire when you took the helm of the ship. That there was a lot that needed to be addressed.
Sure.
So, what are some of the things that you've done in your leadership in order to turn the bank around and bring it to where it is today? Which we'll get to that, but it's in a very good spot now.
Okay.
But tell us a little bit.
Sure. So, well, Counselor, there's a lot of I can't go into too much detail because we have regulators and there's confidentiality requirements when it comes to banking. So, but as far as what I can speak to is the fact that the bank was in a position where there's a pretty good chance that they were going to come in and shut it down. That's why I came on the board.
Right.
Yeah. And back to the mutual piece and being a savings and loan, the fact we are what they call in the industry a micro bank, because we're so small, our asset size. And with that, the resources that we have with a mutual, no one's getting rich, whether you work there or not. It's the mutuals are not about, especially the ones that small, about the money. I didn't do this for the money at all. It really was something that it must be some kind of calling. That's why I do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
You and I have talked long enough, many times, that I'm convinced of that. But that's good, because if God puts you somewhere, then He'll give you what you need in order to make it through.
That's true.
And one of the things that He has given you is the gift of attracting quality people to your team.
Well, I've been blessed and fortunate.
Yeah.
With the team, including you. I mean, being our general counsel for the bank and a director, we really do have. I feel really good about where we are right now, because even with the board and even with our financial position, this bank is going to stay open.
Oh yeah.
And the bank is. We're not out as much. Well, I'm not out in the community as much right now, because I'm dealing with regulators and bringing in money and basically cleaning things up so that we can thrive and keep moving.
Right. So I want to talk about your board a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And so you mentioned me, and that's fine. People hear from me every week, so they don't need to hear about me necessarily. But Steve Moore.
Oh yeah.
Your right-hand man.
Oh yeah.
Talk
Steve.
about Steve a little bit here.
All right. Yes. So Steve, I've known Steve for over a decade. Steve Moore, we worked together at DFI. He was a financial examiner. He's been one of my, I call him little brother.
Another Milwaukee homegrown talent.
He grew up right around the block from here. Yes, and he he joined the board about 2 years ago, and he's in the fintech area right now, the financial technology. So he works for a company that deals more with the technology type stuff. So he has expertise in banking and the technology.
Right.
So, with the board, I've been very careful in bringing on new members just to make sure that they have the same mission in mind, one, and two, that they have the expertise.
Right.
And everybody on this board has expertise.
Right.
And years and years of knowledge within the industry, which was what was lacking before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it looks like we have a couple of calls holding. I did want you to talk about Dr. Fuller a little bit too, but let's take a couple of these calls, and then we'll circle back. And I would like for you to just tell the audience a little bit about who he is as well. Okay, so we have a caller. Caller, go ahead, please.
Well, how you doing? I just want to say my family's been banking with Columbia Savings and Loans since I was a child. I'm 62. My father had a tire shop right there on 20th and Fond du Lac, Wahee Tire Center, and so that's what I wanted to say. And I'm gonna have to get with you, attorney, because I need to talk to you about this will stuff.
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
I'll call you.
That sounds good. Thank you for letting us know that. You have a good day. We look forward to talking to you. Okay.
Bye, thank you.
Caller, thank you for calling. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Good morning to everybody there at Columbus Saving and Loans. I just want to say thank you so much for being there and sharing your expertise and telling us like it is with the community. So I just want to say to everybody there in the studio, thank you. And I have a question, if I may.
Please.
Back in the days, well, maybe not back in the days, maybe right now, we have certain people that don't have a high credit score, and they work two jobs. They honestly trying to do their best, but they can't go to certain banks because of their credit score, so they can't even open up an account in the first place. Okay, even though they're trying to do that, then they find themselves going to a title loan place to get a loan, or go to check cash in place to cash their checks. As you know, those are exorbitant interest charges that they charge on the poor people like that. So what I'm trying to ask, and I'm not trying to be unfair, and I beg your pardon, because I'm not putting this on your shoulder, everybody there in the station for Columbus Savings and Loans, but do you have any kind of incentives for people that's actually working hard, young people working two jobs, but because of the credit score, they can't even open up a bank account or something like that. What would you say about that? Do you have any senators or anything they can do to come to your bank to do it? Because I'm okay. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I go to a VA credit union, so I'm already taken care of. But what I'm trying to say, just because I'm taken care of, doesn't mean that I don't respect what you're trying to do for the community.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is there any incentive that you can offer the people that's actually working hard? Again, excuse me for reiterating that. And they work in 2 jobs now, but since they credit score, as you know what I'm trying to say, other banks and institutions won't even accept them, force them to go to check cash in place and title loan places and stuff like that, where they charge outrageous interest rates and stuff like that. Do you have anything you can add to that, or how can you help them so they can come to you? And thank you for taking my call, and I listen to your question. Thank you.
Well, no, thank you. It's always good to hear the appreciation from the community when it comes to the efforts. You don't hear it every day, but anyway. So yeah, to your question, when it comes to credit scores, you're right. When it comes to majority banks and most banks, community or large, with Columbia, we, as a mission bank, all of our loans are in-house, which means you're not people that come looking for loans even with whatever credit score. I mean, hopefully higher than lower. But we do work with, and there are also ways to clean up credit. And once we do an analysis of the credit report, a lot of those items may fall off, whether it's judgments or old debt, what have you. So we had customers come in that the scores weren't great, but just through working with them, boosted their scores up about 100 points, so they could qualify. So
wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. So I'd like to, as we grow, I want to have more resource, build the bank out to provide financial literacy, credit. With our partner banks, we work sometimes with them in order to work with customers when it comes to credit. But from the beginning, I've always said, from Columbia, you won't, if you're not in a position to buy a home, not only with the credit but the ability to repay, you'll never get a no. You might get a not yet, but we'll work with you.
That's significant.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Good job with that. Okay. It looks like we do have another caller holding. Caller, thank you for calling. Go ahead, please.
Hey, good morning. My question is the advantage of a trust over a will and the difference between the two.
So thank you for that question. I know that we've done a kind of a long standing series on estate planning, and that's something that I talk about from week to week. To answer that question, what I'm going to do is give you the phone number for my law office, and I'll ask you to just send me a text message, if you will, with your name and contact information. Then we can go into depth with that a little bit more. Today, we are fortunate to have the president of Columbia Savings and Loan here in the studio with us, and we're focusing today just on Columbia. So let me give you the number for the law office where you can send me your information to get some help with that. The number is 414-27. Okay, no problem.
414-272.
5750.
5750. I have it. Thank you.
Thank you for calling. Okay.
So you didn't need me today.
No, we definitely do. So I'd like to take you back, and thank you, callers, for all calling in.
Wait, Carl, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
See, and I just want to give the followers a Coral for this show. I listen every week, and I understand she has a very good audience. And what I like most about it is the fact that she's with the wills and estate planning, everything related to the law that she mentions has to do with financial, and that's very important. So I do enjoy her show and her getting the calls, asking questions about the will and estate planning, because that's very important, especially for our community. So I just wanted to say that, Cora.
Thank you, Ernie, because you bought me a minute here to go and drag out my business card because I just realized I gave the gentleman the wrong number. So I'm sorry. So we're live on the air and I made a mistake like that. I was thinking of something else. The number for the law firm is 414-247-9570. So I apologize, caller. I gave you some bad information. 414-247-9570. You can text that number with your name and a contact number so that I can either get a hold of you or have one of my paralegals get a hold of you so that we can make arrangements to do a consultation. So thank you for that. All right. So back to the bank. So you were about to tell the audience about Dr. Mose Fuller.
Oh, sure. So Dr. Fuller and I came on the board at the same time back in 2019. So we're at this point, the longest serving board members. And yeah, he's I think he just got his doctorate just in the last couple of years, but he's been a pastor for a while. And he used to be a fire squad firefighter.
Right, for the fire department.
But we've gotten to be close over the years. And he's been through it.
Yeah.
From the beginning. Well, since I've been on the board. So
right.
He's at the bank right now.
Oh, yeah. Holding it down. Mm-hmm. He comes in there every day and holds it down.
Yep.
And that's not common for directors.
Right.
You've got some hands-on people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
No, his board is, I couldn't ask for a better board right now. Everybody is dedicated to everything and having to step in and do work, not just director level work, but day-to-day work.
Well, with all due respect, Ernie, and I can speak to this because I'm a part of it, but you've drawn good people to the team based on what we see in you, in terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis and how you work so hard and how you try so hard and how you give so much into this mission that is Columbia Savings and Loan, this mission that started 100 years ago. Yeah. But the fact that you care so much about it, we don't want to see it end. No. We did not want to see it end. So you were a one-man show for a season there, in turning things around. Yes, there was staff and so people come and go though, but the leadership is what commands things.
Sure.
So absolutely want to give you kudos for that.
Oh, thank you.
And it looks like we have a call here that's holding. Go ahead, caller.
Hello, good morning. May God bless both of y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say thank you, Carl, and thank you, Ernie. I know it's been hard what you had to do, and it was not easy, but I hope Black people come to Columbia, get to know y'all. Y'all are very great peoples. This is Larry Keith.
I know Larry.
Hi, Larry. We know your voice. We weren't going to say your name, though, unless you said it.
I just want to say thank y'all so much for what you did, keeping them doors open. If people come to get to know y'all and really talk to y'all, they would be surprised. Both of y'all are great peoples. I hope that more peoples, Black peoples, get together and come down and support the bank. It's really not a bank, it's a savings and loan, but we all family. Mm-hmm. So I just want to say thank y'all one more time. And I hope the Black people who are listening come down, get to know y'all as people, because y'all great people. Now, Ernie can be kind of mean, that's his job, because he had to do a lot to get this thing turned around. But come down, get to know y'all. I guarantee y'all will be surprised. And let's keep doing a great job. Thank you.
Larry, thank you so much. You gave me I'm sorry, you gave me the laugh I needed this morning. He said Ernie can be mean, but he had to be in order to get things done.
But I'm sure I'll see Larry later on today. I see him every time I'm
done. I was going to say, I saw Larry standing outside talking to you yesterday as he was leaving. So yeah, thank you, Larry. We appreciate you. And thank you to all of the customers of Columbia, because one thing that I've noticed since I've been involved is that it's like the customer base are just very relational. I met Ms. Walker yesterday, who has affiliations with the bank, and she grabbed me and hugged me like she knew me her whole life. So this is the type of experiences that we have with people. So I'm just happy to be a part of it. Happy to be a part of it. Um, okay, so any any other things that you wanted to talk about in terms of you had to working towards updating systems. You basically put a new board in place, and the board's wearing many hats. They're not just being directors, and even me running the bank in tandem with you daily, and we are putting key people in key positions to get things done inside of the bank in order to turn things around.
Right. Well, that's a good segue too,
Mhm.
because I want to speak to the staff. So I thought about this a lot even before the show, Coral. And we've talked about it as far as the change, the cultural change.
Yes.
And, you know, Mr. Gary was there for 30, 40 years in his role, and the staff been there for quite a while too. And, whenever you have new management, there's going to be changes. And in this case, necessary changes because if things had continued to operate the way they had been, then we wouldn't have Columbia, just to put it bluntly.
Very true.
Right. So, and even so, and I understand that. I know I'll be a mean, maybe, but but not so much mean. It's just and you and I should have this in common. When it comes to the business and the urgency with which these things have to get cleaned up, not everybody is going to have the patience for it, including customers.
Right.
So it's not just that, but Shane, it's got to take it as it comes. I mean, I've had to deal with some irate customers and explaining things and of that nature. And it's understand, yeah, and I understand, but at the same time, people need to be professional about within the organization and even with the customers, because one thing you always speak to is excellence, and that's what we expect.
Right.
From our staff, customers, everybody, our people.
No, absolutely. And sometimes people might see that as mean, but that's the standard. Excellence. That's what we're about in terms of going forward. So, yep. Looks like it's time for a break again. I hear the music coming through. Thank you so much, Jermaine, for giving us that cue. We will be right back with some final comments from the president of Columbia Savings and Loan, Mr. Ernest Jones. Okay, welcome back to Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I have the president of Columbia Savings and Loan Association in the studio this morning, Mr. Ernest Jones. Ernie, can you tell us how the bank is doing now financially? We talked about some challenges. You've been working hard with your team to turn the ship. Where are we today?
Well, I have to say that since I've been on the board and maybe in the history of the bank, our assets and our asset quality, our ratios, not to get too technical, but it's the healthiest it's been financially. And we're healthier than a lot of banks, community banks, statewide and nationally too. So our numbers are really good. Our capital levels, our liquidity, which are the deposits, we're way above the minimums for that. So we're in excellent shape financially.
That's good. And even if we don't understand bank talk, we know that was good. Liquidity levels and all of that. But no, I've come to, talk banker talk too now, having worked with you for a year. But thank you so much for that. And so, congratulations that you've done so much to be proud of.
Thank you.
So much to be proud of.
And I'd also like to say, primarily through Coral's efforts, we are bringing on 3 new staff next week.
3 new staff.
Yeah, with banking experience that work for large, smaller banks, and looking forward to that. In the meantime, because we've had some turnover, but in the meantime, I just have to shout out because it really is a family affair. So Coral's niece, Olivia, little Liv, she came in. She's here for the summer. She's in college. She's at University of Oshkosh, right?
Yes. No.
Oshkosh, is it? Yeah.
What is wrong with me?
Yeah,
yes.
I think so. Anyway, she's come in and stepped in, and she's there in the teller area by herself right now. We're bringing in more teller reinforcements, so she's been holding it down, and thank God for her. So that's Coral's niece, and then I call my main man Douglas. He's got the same name as my uncle, my favorite uncle. He's doing security. He's working at the bank too. So I just had to shout them out because they have done excellent jobs just in the short time that they've been there. So
yeah. Appreciate the shout out to the family. I also just want to acknowledge Eugene,
brother Eugene,
who's is it Woods?
Yeah,
I believe that's helping us with the security as well.
Mm-hmm.
Any other staff shout outs? We got some newcomers that are joining us next week.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I wanted to say, stay tuned for more information about the 100-year anniversary of Columbia. We are definitely planning something. We're not going to let this year get away without having an event that's going to acknowledge this centennial, which is a huge deal. But more details to that to come in future shows. So thank you so much again, Mr. Jones, for being here with me today.
Sure, you do an excellent job, Coral.
Hey, I'm surrounded by excellence. I got young Carvey over there, and I have Jermaine that they keep me on point. So appreciate you guys as well. All right, so we look forward to next week. There will be more to come in terms of a series on entrepreneurs and leadership.
Thank you.